Let me take you to a cold day in March of 2024. Picture a mother, Ashley Smylie. She's a high school math teacher, getting news that no parent wants to hear. Something disturbing is happening in her very own home. A concerned student of hers, who's also a close friend of her daughter, Carly, pulls her aside with a gut-wrenching revelation. What Ashley found out that day set off a chain of events that no one could have seen coming. But trust me, this story is about to take a dark and shocking turn. It all began on March 19th, 2024. Only hours before she was due to come home that evening, 40-year-old Ashley Smylie stood having a very difficult conversation. In front of her was not only a student of Northeast Rankin High School in Mississippi, the very same high school that Ashley worked in as a math teacher, but also he was one of her daughter's good friends. This fellow student and friend, full of concern over Ashley's daughter, Carly Gregg, then proceeded to tell Ashley what he'd seen inside Carly's room. Ashley, then shocked and more than likely in complete disbelief, kept what she learned to herself until she got home from school that very same evening. She then went into Carly's room, only to discover that everything she'd heard that day had been the truth. Inside Carly's room was an extensive stash of marijuana, vape pens, and several burner phones. After seeing this same hoard of questionable items for himself, her friend had become so concerned for Carly's safety that he felt like he had to share it with her mother, Ashley. And now that Ashley had verified the story for herself, she had no choice but to confront her daughter and get to the bottom of the fact that Carly was quite possibly and potentially abusing drugs. Carly, now only 15 years old, had long suffered with her mental health. She was known to have frequent bouts with depression, but maybe more alarmingly, also she was known to complain about hearing voices. According to some accounts, she'd received treatment for these auditory hallucinations as a child, and even had gone to equine-assisted therapy, where specialists tried to help people work through their trauma with horses and horseback riding. According to other sources, when Ashley questioned Carly over the stash in her room that day, Carly was on a new medication that left her feeling, in her own words, numb. Caught off guard and with her secrets now in the open, Carly took matters into her own hands. In nanny cam-like footage, video surveillance of the inside of the house showed Carly walking around, being especially cautious to never turn her back on the cameras themselves. She knew the cameras were on and recording. Why she was doing this remained a mystery until Carly stormed into her mother's room and did something shocking. Hidden behind Carly's back that evening was a gun, and when she burst into Ashley's room, Carly opened fire. The footage then captures the shocking sound of 3 gunshots followed by the haunting screams of Ashley. It turned out that even though at least one of those shots had hit Ashley directly in the face, she did not instantly die. While her mother lay bleeding out and succumbing to her injuries, Carly can be seen returning to the kitchen, the gun still hidden behind her back. She then swipes up on her mother's phone and begins to lay the trap for the next victim. Ashley and Kevin Gregg, Carly's biological father, had been divorced for some time now, but Ashley and Carly both shared a home with Ashley's new husband and Carly's stepfather, Heath Smylie. Heath was currently at work, but Carly knew that she would be caught the moment Heath came home and discovered what she had done. The footage then shows Carly perched on a stool in the kitchen, pretending to be her mother as she sends Heath messages from Ashley's phone. "When will you be home, honey?" the text read, but Heath had no idea that it was actually Carly on the other end or what awaited him in his own home. In the meantime, while Carly waited for Heath to get back home from work, she did the unthinkable again. She lured a friend to the house, claiming that there was an emergency. The friend arrived only to be met with Carly at the door, asking her if she was squeamish around dead bodies. "My mom is in there," she went on to explain. It's unclear if that friend believed Carly's claims at the time, but she did manage to make it away from the scene unharmed. The same, however, could not be said for Heath Smylie himself. As Heath arrived home, he found nothing unusual. Everything seemed quiet at first, until he got to the front door and all hell broke loose. "The gun went off in my face before the door was open," he later said, explaining what happened to him next. As soon as Heath opened the door, just a fraction, Carly pounced. Heath was luckier than his wife Ashley had been only an hour or two before him. Instead of hitting him in the head or the face, Heath was shot in the shoulder. This gave him the opportunity to fight back and defend himself. He was still injured and ambushed, but he managed to wrestle the gun out of Carly's hands and stop the attack. Now that she had lost the advantage of surprise, Carly fled the scene. Footage from the outside of the home shows her running away towards the street, while inside, Heath gathered his senses. In a few short moments, he had to look around and figured out what happened. "She killed her mom," he told the 911 operator as he fought back tears. Dispatchers then sent law enforcement, who managed to find and arrest Carly a short distance away from her home. Almost unbelievably, Heath later stood by Carly in court. Instead of turning on her for killing his wife and her own mother, Heath testified that to him, Carly had only ever been a sweet little girl. "I never seen anybody like that, even in movies. She was not herself, and I do not believe that she recognized me." This is how he later described the moment that Carly attacked him to the courts. He then went on to say that her actions had not impacted their relationship. He claimed that they still talked daily, and then he asked for mercy, saying that he believed that Carly had been ill at the time of the murder. Psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Clark also addressed the courts and corroborated Heath's testimony. He claimed that Carly's mental health had severely declined because of the medication that she was on, and she had been at an all-time low on the day of the shooting. Quote, "And then her mother finds out she's smoking marijuana," he explained. "For Carly, in particular, she so cared about her mother's approval, so for her, this was a crisis." He then made the argument that a breakdown in Carly's mental health had led her to make the decisions she made that day. In court, Carly faced charges of murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. She faced a potential sentence of life in prison, but had already turned down a plea deal where she would receive a lesser sentence. Instead, she chose to argue that she was not guilty by reason of insanity. However, the jury disagreed with her claims that she was insane the evening that she killed her mother. On September 20th, 2024, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but her defense lawyers immediately put in an appeal. In a 9-page motion, they detailed over a dozen reasons why Carly should be granted a new trial. They claimed that new evidence and material has been recently discovered, which probably would produce a different result in a new trial. Her lawyers also argue that Carly is too young to fully understand the charges against her to make an educated decision on whether to take a plea deal or not. They argue that this is something that the state of Mississippi recognizes itself by only allowing people who are over the age of 21 to serve on a jury, even though they can vote when they turn 18. We'll have to wait to see how the results of Carly's appeals pan out, but one person who believes that justice was actually served that day was Carly's very own biological father, Kevin Gregg. "That girl knew right from wrong," he told the press. "That girl is not insane. That was a very dumb defense if you ask me, but I wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me." He believes that Carly is exactly where she should be, behind bars at the Youthful Offender Unit at the Mississippi Correctional Facility in Pearl, Mississippi. If she loses her appeals, that is very likely where she will stay until she turns 18, and then she will be moved to a stricter, more severe prison for adults for the rest of her life. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, I'm the host, and thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're a brand new listener, subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you're on social media, great, me too. Make sure you follow the podcast. Links are in the show notes of this episode, or you can go to 10minutemurder.com and you'll find all the information there, as well as all kinds of other cool things as it relates to the podcast, including how you can get in touch with me, which is joe@10minutemurder.com. And I've been reading some of your emails, and I don't understand why you all like for me to talk about my pet peeves. And it's never anything serious. I mean, at least probably to you, they're not serious. But in my own mind, it's a big deal. And you all, for some reason, like for me to talk about that during this time in the podcast. So, okay, here are a couple more things that bother me. If you go to a carnival and you get one of those big turkey legs, you see people walking around with the big turkey legs that look and smell delicious. That's not turkey. And that bothers me. I don't know if this is breaking news to you, but that is ham. If you don't eat ham, don't order the turkey leg at a carnival because it's probably ham. That's something I did not know. You'll know as soon as you take a big bite of it, and you'll say, this doesn't taste like any kind of turkey I've ever had. That's because it's not turkey, it's ham. That bothers me. Something else that bothers me quickly, people that rate things using a decimal point. Okay, you can say a half or 0.5. I'll give you that. If you say, well, this piece of pizza is a 7.5 or it's an 8.5, I'll give you the 0.5. But if you hit me with this is a 8.3, this pizza's okay, it's a 6.2. What is this scientific scale that none of us know about that you're rating things on that you think it needs to be a 0.1, a 0.9? I don't understand. It's a whole number or it's a half. That's it. The pizza can't be a 7.3. Be for real right now. That bothers me. All right, and that's it. That is your episode for today. Thank you so much for listening to 10-Minute Murder.